Today was a busy day in the world of American motorsport. It was day 2 of the final preseason IndyCar test, and drivers like Jimmie Johnson got their first taste of IndyCar in 2022. Also, it was the first day of the Daytona 500, practice that is, and if you've been paying attention recently, it may be a bit of a surprise, or maybe not. Maybe we get to talk about sandbagging again, who was on the top of the charts. Let's get into it. So welcome to the Man on the Scene segment for today's video. Now this is filmed about 11:30 in the morning here at Sebring, because the video that you're actually probably going to see the most of me is me at my house in Indianapolis. It's kind of weird how scheduling worked out for me for this, because this is a 2-day test here at Sebring, and we actually see some new drivers, or some drivers we have not seen, take laps in IndyCar this year, including Dalton Kellett, including Takuma Sato in his new ride for Dale Coyne Racing. All of the Ganassi boys, including Scott Dixon, Marcus Ericsson, IndyCar champ Alex Palou, and of course, Scott Dixon. So the field is split really pretty evenly. There's some drivers who are coming back today who are doing a second day. Kyle Kirkwood and Tatiana Calderon, as well as David Malukas, are running again today. We're also seeing the Ed Carpenter guys out here. So you've got Connor Daly and Rinus VeeKay. Rather than me just name all the names that are here, why don't we take a look at how these boys and girl did today in Sebring testing. And here are the results for day 2 of testing at Sebring, and it was Meyer Shank Racing. 1-2 on the top of the board. Simon Pagenaud from Helio Castroneves. Have I mentioned that I think this team's going to be really strong this year? Now, it's important to note that if you haven't been subscribed to my channel, these guys tested Pagenaud and Castroneves early on in the year. I think it was like January 3rd at Sebring. So they had some data going in, but you have to also remember, and this may be the most key out of everything, as I mentioned yesterday, the Andretti dampers. The Meyer Shank Racing team has access to the Andretti dampers through their partnership with Andretti Technologies. So not really a shock that the two quote-unquote Andretti cars that we're testing today were on the top of the board. Of course, Sebring, very famous for being used as a street circuit testing ground. For IndyCar anyway, and wouldn't you know it, a guy who absolutely shined on street courses last year is third. Marcus Ericsson, the first of the Chip Ganassi drivers. All 4 of the full-time drivers were testing today. Ericsson, I think, is a true dark horse at St. Petersburg, by the way, if you want to make a high odd bet. Rinus VeeKay, good to see him back on form. Ed Carpenter Racing looks like it may be a pretty strong contender with the consistency of VeeKay and Daly in the driving duties. Kyle Kirkwood, I tooted his horn yesterday. I'm so impressed thus far what I've seen with Kirkwood, what he's been able to do with a team, you know, and to their credit, AJ Foyt does a lot with little. And Kyle Kirkwood, I think, is going to get the absolute most out of that car. You have to also remember, though, Sebastian Bourdais, who was in that car, very good on the street circuit, so I'm sure they have a good baseline, but I think Kirkwood, a lot of people are going to be vying for his talents before the end of the year, I think. Alex Palou, IndyCar champion, and 6th on the board today, and I almost did it immediately. Connor Daly in the Bitnile car looks almost so strikingly resembles last year's Jimmie Johnson car. That's going to be tough for the first couple of races that I don't call the 20 car, the 48. Scott Dixon, the greatest driver of the generation, at least according to the stat book, and was 8th on the board. But certainly the old dogs at Ganassi, they're not trying or they're not trying to set a fast time, I guess you could say, in testing. It's all about consistency. It's all about learning, I suppose, especially for Dixon. I'm sure there were some fuel mileage calculations today. Callum Ilott in 9th place. He got 2 test days. He got to run yesterday, and he ran today. Obviously important for the Juncos Hollinger Racing team to get back up to speed. Full-time basis this year for the 77 car. David Malukas, who was so quick yesterday, didn't show that outright pace today, but surely, you kind of look at like Pato yesterday, and you got to think that some of these teams are definitely not going for outright speed, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Dale Coyne Racing was not going for outright speed today. Case in point, right behind him in 11th place on the board, Takuma Sato, his first day with Dale Coyne, with Rick Ware racing a beautiful purple and white car. You got to see this thing in person. It's lovely, and of course I'm extremely biased, seeing as my logo is purple and white. But I think Sato, once we get to the month of May, look out, because I think Sato has proven that he can win in any kind of a car at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he has delivered Indy 500 wins to the last 2 teams he's joined. Jimmie the Juggernaut. Once again, he's right about where he was last year, which is not, at the top of the board. But, again, I kind of look at Jimmie as this year I think you're going to see real progress with him. I think the last couple of races throughout the season in 2021, I think were extremely impressive, especially Long Beach. And considering that they're going to a street circuit, obviously, to start the season at St. Pete, it's now a street course that Jimmie Johnson has seen before, and you look to Laguna Seca and the Indy GP, those are the 2 races that he really performed the best in my opinion, and ultimately those were tracks that he had laps on. So those Jimmie Johnson fans, wait, good things are coming, I think. Dalton Kellett, first time in the car this year, and unfortunately kind of brings an AJ Foyt caboose to the second day of Sebring testing, along with his teammate Tatiana Calderon, who of course was testing yesterday. Showed some decent pace, but today wasn't quite there. And now we're back in the Land Castle. Amazing. I only started flying, believe it or not, I only started flying probably 5 or 6 years ago. My first flight was, I think, ironically, to the 12 Hours of Sebring in around 2017 or 2018. So I may look a little bit strung out because I'm still figuring out this travel stuff, but it's amazing to me that I can film myself in Sebring at noon and then be back here at 9:19 p.m. and be able to film a video at the Land Castle in the same day. So we've talked enough IndyCar for now. Don't worry, we'll talk a lot more IndyCar. Daytona 500 testing started today, or practice, I guess I should say, and ultimately it was the Fords that were quickest. Michael McDowell led the first session. Joey Logano led the second session. Now, it appears that they were really working on race trim. Lots of running in packs for the Ford teams. I think everybody kind of thinks and expects that the Chevys will have something in qualifying, and that's important, and we'll talk about this tomorrow for the open cars, the cars that can time and speed their way in and won't have to worry about racing through the duels. Of course, there are 6 open cars, 2 of which go home. But I do think it's also funny, and I pointed it out in that Ford video, and I hope you guys listen to me. When I kind of heard the changes that they were making to the Ford, and they started talking about how there was too much downforce and too much drag, well, you take that away, and ultimately you kind of make a better super speedway car. So I think that's a story we should track throughout this week in Daytona, is how good is the Ford by itself? And I guess we'll find that out starting tomorrow with single car qualifying. Let me know down in the comments what you think of IndyCar testing, or who do you think will be on the front row tomorrow for the Daytona 500. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. We'll see you in the next video. I'm going to go take a nap now.